welcome back to East Coast DNA. Today we have a special guest that is not here on the East Coast. For clarity, there is some East Coast connections, and the reason that we have this guest today is because there will be some East Coast performances coming up later in the year. Today's band guest is Nice Horse, but representative from the band, we have Katie here. Welcome, Katie.
Hello. Hi, thanks for having me.
Now, Katie, I purposely didn't introduce you by your stage name right off the bat.
Hmm.
You go by Katie Rox.
Hmm.
So I knew who you were when I saw the Nice Horse stuff out there, like the promos for it. And like you have an album out already, but I know you're gearing up for a new album. So we'll get to that in a
Hmm.
minute. But before we get too far into what you're promoting today,
Hmm.
I had noted back in a podcast forum that I was doing back in Moncton a few months ago that I'm actually an immortal, and that's how I'm able to know some older music news with some of the new music news. And I've noticed that you happen to be part of the same club as me because you have a couple different eras that I'm aware of you from. So I really wanted to introduce you as Katie B.
Uh-huh.
And we won't spend too much time on it because I know that's not at all where you thought this conversation was going to go.
I'm already excited.
So you did a notable thing in your early career. You sang backup for Mandy Moore.
I did.
So I am curious how you're able to do that like so early into your career when she's an American artist and you were living in probably Alberta at the time.
No, I was living in Vancouver, and honestly,
Okay.
it's not a very exciting story, unfortunately.
Oh,
But I was working at a recording studio, and they needed some background vocals on a song, and I was
okay.
like, "Well, I can sing." And they're like, "Okay, then can you come and do it?" And I was like, "Okay." So that was it.
Excellent. Oh
So I
yeah.
went into the vocal booth and did the backup vocals, and that was it. And it was in a movie, and like it was in a movie called Saved, and like
Mhm.
but I have no idea. Like maybe they like I did it. Did they end up using it? I have no idea.
That's hilarious. And it's
Yeah,
funny, those stories, I do get a lot of those on the podcast because those are the interesting stories that stick out.
yeah.
But when people start to get introduced into the industry or decide, like, I want to be a musician, the number one thing that people always tell you is like, you can't sit around and wait for somebody just to offer you something. But it kind of happens as long as you're available for somebody to say that to you. You just have to
That's
put yourself
exactly
out there.
it. Yeah, like being in the recording studio, I remember some advice that I got very early on was it was like do the job that you're here to do, which was to be the receptionist. I was hired as a receptionist and then eventually moved on to being the assistant manager. And he was like, people will figure it out. Like just
Yeah.
be the receptionist and people will figure it out. And versus like people walking in and me being like, "Hi, I'm a singer," that would get annoying. So he was like, "You don't need to do that." I wouldn't have anyways, but he was like, just be you and people will figure it out. And so that literally is what happened, as people started to get to know me, then they would start to ask and I would volunteer this information. But yeah, I got asked to do a lot of things that didn't work out. Like I was asked to sing on some Disney stuff before, but then I went
Mhm.
up and they were like, no, not the right thing. Like people would be like, do you want to come and do this? And then they'd be like, oh, never mind, we got somebody else. But I was always like ready to say yes to
Sure.
something.
And now I will admit that what I would have known you more so from back in the Much Music days,
Hmm.
um, I'd I've mentioned it a couple times on some of these episodes because we have a lot of different genres, and we don't have industrial music down here on the East Coast necessarily. There's a few
Yeah.
bands that kind of touch the area, but I would have known of you through Jackalope, being a
Hmm.
band that worked with Trent Reznor.
Hmm.
And I do remember the debut album coming out. There was a lot of like the PR and marketing around it. And that was a heyday for CanCon. Like for if you were a Canadian independent musician, there were people that were looking like, we want to talk about you, we want to play your music. And I remember Jackalope for a short period of time anyway was like everywhere. Everyone's like, yeah, this it's a Canadian band. They're working with Nine Inch Nails and it's industrial music, it's independent, it's pop too. It's like you were hitting all the things. And I know
Yes.
you didn't end up being the next like Nickelback or Avril Lavigne or whatever, but you existed before they were of note anyway. So So
This is crazy.
that experience, I know you didn't stay with the band for the whole duration of it,
Mhm.
but it was also a similar experience where you were approached, like people were like, "We have a project we're working on and we like the way you sound and we want you to come on."
Yeah, that
So,
was it. That was exactly it. Like again, I was working at that recording studio. That recording studio did so much for me.
yeah.
Because I was young, like I was 19 when I started working there. Um, yeah, and when that came about, it was the same thing. It was just like, yeah, like Dave Ogilvy, the producer, he and I really got along really well. And so he said he just, same thing, like he was just like, I just like you as a person and I know that you sing and he wanted somebody that wasn't the expected what you think would be in an
Mhm.
industrial rock band. And what's really funny is so many people see me now and they're like, "Oh, I didn't know you were into country." And it's like they're like, "We know you as this rock girl." And it was like, "But I was country first, you know?" And that was what I was doing. And that was one of the things that Dave Ogilvy liked about me was he was like, "You're not the expected choice for this, which is why I want to choose you." And so he gave me a
Yeah.
bunch of tracks and he was like, "Take these home, listen to them like just instrumental tracks, write some lyrics, and then we'll go into the studio and we'll see if this works." And so that's how it started. But he wanted melodies that weren't going to be necessarily what would be picked. He wanted somebody who had a different take on it. But yeah, and that is when you're talking about that era. I was just talking about this with a friend yesterday. That I think like yeah, that was the heyday of Much Music, and that like you said like CanCon it was so big then and because you were on people's TVs I still get recognized for being in that band because I was in everybody's living room essentially all the time on
Yeah.
their television because we had heavy rotation and so just in December I was getting on the SkyTrain to go away for Christmas and somebody came up to me and he goes, "I'm sorry, is your name Katie?" And I said, "Yeah." And then he's like, "Okay, I thought so." And I was like, "Okay." And then he's like, "Well, I recognize you from music." And of course, I've been doing Nice Horse for a long time now. But I was like, "Oh, cool." And he goes, "Yeah, I was a big Jackalope fan. I had a really big crush on you." And I was like, "Oh my God, you recognize me from that. Like, that was a
That's
long
awesome.
time ago." Yeah.
Yeah, I actually did. I was when I was looking at the press photos that you have for Nice Horse, that it sent me into a whole little rabbit hole. I was like, "She looks familiar, but I have no idea why." And I was thinking, well, maybe you do have another East Coast connection, and I would have known you from something else. But then oh no, no, I know who this is. So
Yeah.
that was pretty exciting. And
Yeah.
kind of getting back to the East Coast connection, you were just here during the Junos in Halifax.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
And so that would have been part of like, I mean, it was the Juno, so why wouldn't you want to be there? But
So fun.
the White Cup Entertainment had some stages for the Samo Festival and for the Cavendish Beach Music Festival.
Yeah.
So you will be performing coming up, or you have performed in the past on the Cavendish Beach? I don't make it to many of those. I hope to this year.
Oh, you got to come. Yeah, we're playing Cavendish. This will be our second time. It'll be our first time on the main stage. And we're playing on the Sunday, which I believe is the July 7th. But yeah,
Awesome.
so Whitecap invited us out because they were, yeah, promoting the Cavendish and the Summer Festival.
Mhm.
So they invited us out to play for the Junos to support that, which was really awesome because Brandy and I both love the East Coast so much. And so it was so fun to be able to go out there and participate in all the Juno events and play for Cavendish for the White Cat folks. They're the nicest, greatest people. They're so supportive of us, and so yeah, it was. And I mean, we ate all the mussels you possibly could
Yeah,
eat.
I could imagine. Yeah, I heard nothing but good things about, well, not just yourselves, but you were definitely included in the conversation, but people that were there on the scene over the weekend, because I was there covering the Junos, but I also stopped into Gahan House to cover some of that as well, and there was good vibes there. I'm really excited
There
to see
really
what's
was.
happening.
Yeah,
And
yeah, it's really awesome.
you mentioned that so previously, and that's where I was confused. I thought you had played before and that you were coming up, and I wasn't sure. So that's the difference. You played on the smaller secondary stage that's further up on the hill,
Yeah,
which is an awesome time. I think I could hang out there. I almost wish it was a different day so I could go to both festivals.
I know, right?
But main stage, that's a big deal to make
Mm-hmm.
that transition. And in the past couple of years, like you've been Nice Horse since 2017.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So you've got a few years going there now, but you have had that band out on some pretty big stages and as support for like Nitty Gritty Dirt Band, and is
Mhm.
it Tom Cochrane that I read to?
Yes, our
Yeah.
very first tour we ever did was opening up for Tom Cochrane. It's
So
amazing.
are you, and I'm not as familiar with Brandy, who's the other
Uh-huh.
half of the duo,
Yeah.
but are you bringing some of your previous connections in the industry over into Nice Horse that you're able to get on a bill like that right away? Like the music's great,
Um,
but that's a big jump to go from,
yeah.
hey, we're a new band and now we're out there.
Yeah, and I mean the thing is Brandy and I have been doing music for a long time, so while Nice Horse was new, we're not new, you know?
Hmm.
And so there's already a level of success that each one of us have had previously that I think allows for those opportunities to present themselves because we're not new musicians who haven't done anything before. And even then, those some people get lucky. But we Brandy and I both knew the management company that we ended up going with at the time. That was they were the ones who helped facilitate that right away, and they were people that we had known for forever. And they just when we told them about the project, they were like, this sounds great, we would love to be a part of this. And so we were able to get it going pretty quickly based, I think, on just past, like, again, it's your music career is your whole life, you know?
Yeah,
So while a
yeah.
project is new, you're often, you've been, you've been brewing it and you've been building it since you opened your mouth and first started singing or grabbed that guitar or bass, whatever, first started playing. You're building the blocks to get to these opportunities and play them.
Yeah, absolutely. And as
Yeah.
someone like myself who's a longtime fan of independent Canadian music, and now I'm doing shows like this, you can see
Yeah.
that quite a bit. Everyone does the
Yeah.
build up. And now getting a little bit into Brandy, then I know that you were doing your own solo career,
Hmm.
and when you were with Jackalope, you did the lyrics as well as singing. So like
Hmm.
you were actually writing the songs with them.
Hmm.
So
Yeah.
with Nice Horse, how does that divvy out between the two of you? Do you
Yeah,
both?
like so yeah, Brandy was in a band. She started as a solo artist and went as Sid New York, which then also became a duo. And so that was it was like an indie pop band. It was a very cool project that she was doing. And so she was a writer and on all of that stuff too. She was writing all of those songs. So we both are songwriters, and have been for a long time. And that's where something that her and I are both really, really passionate about.
Hmm.
And so when we got together, the very like that was what we did. We just did a songwriting trip together. Like we didn't set out to start a band. I actually wasn't even going to do music anymore. I was like, I think maybe I'm done grinding it out. I'm just going to go and work for an airline and that'll be that. And
Hmm.
Brandy was like, well, then why don't you? Because we were friends. And she was like, why don't you just come to Hawaii? I'm going to go there and I'm just going to write some songs for like a month. And I was like, okay, I'll come with you. And so I met up with her there for a week, and everything we were writing was just turning out country. We grew up on country music. She's from a small town, Alberta, so am I, and so everything that we were writing just came out country, and we were like, yeah, this would be a fun little country project.
It is funny if you go back in your bio, and I went pretty far back in your bio, but if you go back even further, it does read like the small town farm girl becomes the country music star. Like it reads like that, but I just happen to be aware that there's a lot in between where you did experiment with different genres,
Yeah,
and you did them successfully. Like those, you were nailing it. That was exactly what I was listening to at the time when I wanted to
that's
listen
so
to that kind of
cool.
music. So
Oh, thank you.
excellent.
Yeah, it's cool, like it was something that I really didn't know anything about, like that genre, and that was something, it was all very new to me. And so I really loved it, and I'm so grateful for that
Hmm.
project and what it did for me, and the experience that it gave me, and the success, and the people, like you mentioned, like the people that I still know to this day because of that, and the fans that I've built because of that. But country music is my heart. This
Yeah.
band, Nice Horse is my heart. This is like the music that if I could write anything, this is it. Like I love this music.
And you can see that in your solo material leading up to Nice Horse as well. And
Right.
I'm curious now, as far as sync licensing, like you had mentioned in earlier in your career that you had a few experiences where you had opportunities to try out for Disney things, but with Nice Horse itself, when I'm going through to see the accomplishments that you have had in a short period of time, you have had some sync licensing, but one of the song titles I noted was also a single that you had in your solo. So is that actually you have sync licensing on Netflix for that song, or did you re-record that song with Nice Horse?
No, actually, so that song had nothing to do. I wasn't even a writer on that song on Pony
Oh,
Up.
okay.
No, that was just something that that had been written, Brandy and Krista, and it was Emily, I believe. Now, or was it Todd Clark? Now I can't. I think it might have been Todd. I can't remember. Because again, I wasn't a writer on that
Yeah,
song.
yeah.
But so they came up with that song and they wrote the song. I was in a different session writing something else, and then I was like, oh, that's really funny because I had an album when I was doing just solo stuff called Pony Up.
So it is a
So
coincidence. Yeah.
it's a
Okay.
total coincidence. Yeah,
That's
isn't that
amazing.
funny?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Small world, I guess. And
yeah,
that kind of leads a little bit into what I was getting at too. Like, even though you did have those different experiences for music, I know that if you're writing the lyrics and singing and you're working with especially the different genres that we're talking about, the co-write is a different style. And I like bands that I listen to that are mainstream, super popular bands over the years that have been doing that. I find over the years the bands, instead of being like a core knit family, seem to be more distant. Like the very talented musicians that take times to do the different components and then somebody assembles it. But
right.
and now I'm making huge assumptions that that's the way Jackalope would have to produce their music because of the genre. But now with Nice Horse, where you and Brandy both have a similar approach of the singer-songwriter, I imagine you're starting with an acoustic guitar and a few lyrics that came to your mind, and you're starting to get your melody, and you're both doing the same kind of thing. Do you find a collaborative writing style where you're both coming from the same point of view is easier? Or does that create more of a conflict where you're both kind of competing to get your ideas into the song?
I think I think it's just an entirely different experience. Like I
Yeah.
was writing melodies for Jackalope as well. Like
Mhm.
they were giving me, I would basically get a track and then
Okay.
I would write to it. Like I would be like, this is what I think the chorus is and this is what I think the verse will be. And I had the melodies and lyrics. And then Dave and I would work on it together because he'd be like, oh, I think that actually sounded more like a verse and maybe you should change this lyric. But whereas when it comes to the country writing, there's a real kind of formula for it and I don't, formula is not the right word. There's a real art form to how it is done
Mhm.
that we have been really learning from of how country music is written. um that is different because I find with pop and with the rock you can be more vague, you can be more um like this, interpret the song as you will, and so
Mhm.
there was that type of stuff was happening with that type of writing. And with this, what I find, and one of the things that I love about writing country music though, is that every word really often matters. Every word
Yeah.
matters when you listen to those songs that make you want to cry. There's not a lyric out of place, there's no
Mhm.
filler. And so and Brandy and I both, again, we love the art form of that, of like making every word count and painting that picture. And so, and I think that we collaborate on it together quite beautifully because we write so many songs. So it's like maybe one, Brandy really has the stronger vision for it. And then maybe another time I'll be the one who has a really strong vision for it. But we're still there supporting each other through that. And also we don't always write together. Like it's really, really a big part of the national process of writing is that you do go in with other writers. And you're always looking for somebody who is a better writer than you
Mhm.
to help you learn, to help you grow, and to help you get the best songs. And so sometimes we'll split, and Brandy will go right with these people and I'll go right with these people. And but we have a lot of fun. And I do find that the songs that we write together often end up being the songs that rise to the top. Like
Yeah.
on the new record that's coming out, there's a song that each of us did write independently of one another, but the whole rest of the record is us. And it wasn't chosen that way deliberately. We just picked the best songs. And the best songs
Okay.
constantly seem to be the ones that her and I write together.
And speaking of the fact that there is a new album, and based on the timing of this release date, this is probably coming out just before the new album. So April 19th is the release date.
Yes. Yeah.
And so the things I wish I didn't know, is that the right
hmm
full name of the song? I
Yeah.
always hate when I do a full one in case I mess it up while I'm recording, but
No, you got it.
should just keep my mouth shut and just assume I got it right. But yeah, so that single, you had a video out like a month ago, maybe.
hmm
So is there? a follow-up single planned when the album comes out, or is this your main single that you're pushing for the album right now?
No, there will be a new focus track that will
Okay.
be with the album. It's a song called Running Out of Reasons.
Okay.
But yeah, so we had Things I Wish I Didn't Know was the first single.
Hmm.
And then we released a song called Seeing Ghosts. Yeah, I think that was probably about a month ago that we released that.
Oh, okay.
And then the record will come out on the 19th. And yeah, and with that, there'll be Running Out of Reasons will be the next song.
And for the new album, I did listen through the songs on it, and the Seeing Ghost one I knew, and the other one, but I'm curious. I didn't listen to all of your old back catalog either,
Hmm.
but it did seem to me just in the pass through that I did that maybe you have a little bit, I don't want to say rockier style this time because country music does have that kind of rock element to it anyway. And
Yeah,
especially when you're looking at bands that have that kind of southern rock, there's a real overlay between country and southern rock,
yeah,
but maybe a little bit more upbeat as far as like tempo and stuff on the songs. Like the subject matter is very similar,
yeah.
but it seems like maybe is it because you're playing on bigger stages now and you're looking for a few songs that you can kind of energetically belt out, or
I
is
mean,
it
we've really,
nothing?
I, I think they were just the best songs, but we do
Yeah.
love to have a good time. Like our live show is something that we've really gotten like a reputation for putting on a really great live show. And so we love those like big gritty sounds. Like that's,
Hmm.
and Tara, who was in the band at the time, she was a metal shredder. So we had her voice was absolutely like amazing for that, and how she played guitar. And so I think that like definitely inspired the sounds of where we went as a band.
Hmm. And now, who are the other members? Because I'm referring to as a duo, and
Mhm.
that's definitely what people will see out there if they're searching for you online. But
Yeah.
as far as the live performance, you do have a full band.
Well, we will
So,
play with a live band, but it
yeah.
won't be the same members. Like
Okay.
Tara and Krista aren't with us anymore, and we're not
Mhm.
replacing them,
Yeah.
so we are just a duo now. But we'll still have like a full band playing with us when we're out.
So, do you have studio musicians, or do you do most of the work yourself, and then you have to have the other players to perform it live because you can't be multiple people at the same time?
That's exactly it. We can't be multiple people at the same
Yeah.
time. So
Yeah.
yeah, so we'll have, I mean, just like anybody else, like when you go watch a solo artist, they have a
Hmm.
band backing them. It's the same thing.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, I find
Yeah.
it funny because especially now that I know a few artists like socially, sometimes
Hmm.
I'm privy. Well, as an example, I've heard your new album, so sometimes
Yeah.
I'm privy to stuff ahead of time. And when I'm not recording, I'll ask a little bit more novice questions. Like I'm not as worried about how I come across.
Yeah, of
And I
course.
have said like, "Oh, who's playing drums on that?" And they'll be me.
Mhm.
I'm like, "Oh, who's doing the backup vocals? Me." I'm like,
Yeah.
"Oh, yeah, I suppose. Why wouldn't you do it?"
Yeah, well, and on this recording, it is like Krista, like who was in the band. She's on the drums on this, and Tara is on the guitars on this, who was also
Hmm.
in the band. And it's Brandi on bass, and it's me on acoustic, and it's me on banjo, and then Murray Pulver, who was the producer. I think he played some guitars on it too. And
Cool.
yeah, so there's a few other people. Like there was a dobro player, so there's a few people on it, but it's primarily us.
So I've already mentioned that you have the album coming out on April 19th. So there's new
Yeah.
material for people to listen to, and there's already a couple videos floating around. So I'm
Mhm.
sure I went through your videos because I love YouTube, and I do see that you have made some of your own videos and very successfully. You have quite a few views. What was it, the high school video? You have like
Yeah, but that's the one that we won our Canadian Country Music Award for. And yeah, that's a
amazing.
music video that we did ourselves. Yeah.
Yeah, you did a great job on that one, which you don't need me to tell you. You know that already because you've received awards and accolades for it. But yeah, excellent job. It was impressive to see that you guys did that yourselves, like that you were able
Thanks.
to
I mean,
do it in-house.
that was a pandemic thing. We couldn't be together, and Brandy and then Krista, who was in the band at the time, they were like, I think we could put this together. If we can all get green screens and shoot this, I think we could put it together. So we were like, okay. And so I give them ton of credit for that because they were the ones who ultimately put the whole thing together. And yeah, and again, it's like sometimes, desperate times, it's like we got to get a
Yeah.
music video out there. We had already done an animated video to get us through when we couldn't be together, and the pandemic just went for so long that we're like, now what do we do that we can't be together? We've done the animated thing, and so then it was green screens and do it ourselves, and we were like, well, what do we have to lose? We're all stuck at home anyways, and it was $300 to buy Final Cut Pro or whatever they were
Hmm.
editing on, and we were just like, and if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. But
Yeah.
we had a project, and it's like it went from, well, maybe it'll work out, and at least it gives us something to do, to winning our first Canadian Country Music Award. Like it's so wild to me that
That is
that's how that
amazing.
worked out. Yeah,
And so, besides the fact that you've had a lot of successes fairly quick into every different step of your career, with the nice horse stuff, and like you're saying, like that was a pandemic thing, a lot of people picked up a lot of new skill sets because everyone learned how to do things themselves so that they could get it out there. So
yeah,
does that mean that nowadays, like we mentioned much music in the earlier bands that you were in, but where we don't have something like that, and networks like CBC and CTV are great, but they've been pulling back funding and the amount of time that's dedicated to that stuff a lot over the last few years. So we're getting
yeah,
a smaller and smaller window, and it's becoming that the onus is more and more on the artist to produce your own content.
yeah.
So do you find that the social media aspect these days is kind of replacing what something like Much Music would have done for you in the old days?
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a lot that of social media that is just expected when you're in a
Hmm.
band. That is how you promote yourselves. And I mean, but also that's something that we embraced very early on. And that's actually because of our social media was how we got our first Canadian Country Music Award nomination.
Okay, yeah.
So when we were a new band, like you said, you need to get yourselves out there. And so we just started doing a ton of stuff kind of before people were doing it. Like it was before TikTok and it was before Instagram stories and Instagram reels, and we were just shooting funny content, things that made us laugh, and because we only had a handful of songs and we were still just trying to get ourselves out there. But that hard work got recognized, and we didn't end up winning the award for it on the Canadian country music side of it, but we did for Country Music Alberta. We ended up winning. They call it interactive artist, and that is for like what you are doing online and the creative things that you're doing. So that's something that we latched onto pretty quickly.
Hmm.
That again really helped push this band forward, and we got a lot of recognition for it that we're like really proud of. And but it is something that, yeah, we do it and we are doing it ourselves, and it is a lot of stuff to do.
Oh
Like,
yeah.
but it is, like you said, there is no much music anymore, and what people are doing everywhere they go is scrolling on their phones, and so
Hmm.
you want to give them something. And especially during the pandemic, people really got to see people for who they really are, because even Dolly Parton was stuck at home, like
Yeah, yeah,
everybody
yeah.
was stuck at home. And so it gave everybody got I think a more of a view into the lives of artists that way. And now that seems to be that is kind of state. People really want to know a lot more about you as a person and what you do with your day and
Mhm.
how do you like what happens. And so but yeah, I mean it's a bit it's not natural, to
Yeah,
be
yeah.
filming every step of your day all of the time. So it's something that you have to think about and prepare for. But I think it's really fun. Like
Mhm.
it's fun to like I that's one of the things that I like about our social media is we tend to Brandy's a really good time, and I think I'm a pretty good time too. And so we tend to come up with some pretty funny things when we're together. And but there's more to us than that, and that's what I think the social media, and that's also what the music shows is like we can be doing the most ridiculous things online, but then you'll hear our songs, and there's a lot of heart and a lot of soul
Yeah.
there. So it's like we're not just idiots on the internet, which is what I used to joke about. I was like, we're getting nominated for just being idiots on the internet, but it's like it's fun, but it's a lot. And you're right, it is. That was a long way of saying, yeah, I think that is what has replaced the
Mhm.
television watching side of it. Yeah.
It definitely comes across like you guys are having fun behind the
Hmm.
scenes, and you had a behind the scenes video for the high school video,
Yeah.
actually. And
Yeah.
I did mention it when I was researching to one of my media friends that I was like, "I think you would like these ladies. They look like a good time. Like, you would have fun because 'cause they're a photographer, and I think they would just have fun with that whole playful
Yeah.
aspect of it, right? It makes fun
Yeah. I mean,
for
when you're
candid type photographs and that type of thing.
Yeah, and when you're doing this for a living and you're on the road all the time. To me, it's like if this is how I'm spending my time away from my family and friends, I want to have a good time doing it, you know?
Yes.
Like, and so I'm the first one to be like, can we please pull over and go look at that like funny museum on the side of the road? Or can we, because I want to like I want to experience the whole thing,
Right.
and so that, and live it all and have a good time doing it. And because there's a lot of work and there's a lot of tears. So it's like you may as well find the fun in it too. And then it makes for great social media content.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's just the bonus of it. It's really about enjoying life more than anything else.
Yeah, exactly.
So down below in the description, I will have a link to the Nice Horse website.
Okay, perfect.
For social media, Instagram, Facebook, what should people go look for you on?
It's all at Nice Horse Music.
That's super convenient.
Yeah.
See, you guys know exactly what you're doing right out of the back. You did everything the right way.
Told you we're not new.
Yeah. And if Brandi would like to be on a future episode to dive a little bit more into her side of the story too, she's more
Yeah.
than welcome to reach out and be on a future episode.
Awesome.
I do hope that I'll be over covering some of the Cavendish Beach Music Festival this year, so I will look for both of you on the scene if I happen to get over there.
Yeah.
And the new album, April 19th, available like
Hmm.
everywhere. Is there a
Everywhere.
physical media coming out to go with that as well?
Yeah, yeah, we will. We'll have CDs and we'll have vinyl too.
Perfect. So people should keep an eye on your website and stay tuned to your social media for news and updates. I do see that
Yeah.
on your website there's tour dates and there's a couple festival things listed, but I'm assuming if people frequently check that, they'll see that that flushes out a little bit in between over the next few months.
Yeah, it's gonna be a busy summer. So
Great. Well, I'm excited to see what else is in store for you as band and individuals. And yeah, hopefully throughout the year we get a chance to catch up again and
yeah.
see where you've got with the new album.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thank you so
Great.
much.
Thank you very much. And for the people that are still watching this episode, we play out with a song. So would you like to throw in a song from the new album?
Yeah, I think you should play Seeing Ghosts.
Awesome. Here we are with Seeing Ghosts. And once again, thank you. And hopefully we'll talk soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Bye.
Out of the corner of my eye, man, I swear you just walked by. You left this house 2 weeks ago and disappeared up in smoke. Yeah, you made your decision.